Jaron Ennis says he wants the winner of Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford. Will they duck or fight Boots? What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Cardinal Red Sports. Let's talk about it. Alright, y'all. So, recently in an interview, there was actually a couple of interviews that were done, and Jaron Ennis spoke about his calling out of Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. for at least the past 3 to 4 years. And I just want to get my thoughts on that and whether the winner of the Spence versus Crawford fight will actually move to 160 or 154 or actually fight Boots, because Boots said he's willing to move up. Alright, so, this is a big fight. Spence versus Crawford. The whole world is anticipating this fight. A lot of people have been anticipating this fight as far as Spence and Crawford fans for at least 4 to 5 years now. And we're finally getting what we want. And the big picture, or the big question on everybody's mind, is what's after that fight? We've been waiting for this fight for so long, and it's such a big fight. What's actually going to happen after that fight takes place? It depends on the winner. I think Terence Crawford will probably be a little more willing to stick around 147. Perhaps, move to 154. A lot of people think that Spence and Charlo won't fight. I think if the right money's thrown out there, anything's possible. But I would agree that if Terence Crawford wins, it's more likely that he'll fight Charlo, move to 154 and fight Charlo. And Errol Spence, if he wins, he's recently been talking about fight Canelo at 160. So, it doesn't sound like either guy is going to stick around 147. I think it's a possibility, but even if they don't stick around, Boots Ennis says he's willing to move up to either 154, 160, or 168, wherever he has to go to get these fights, because he wants to make those fights. Those are the biggest fights for him, and he really wants to make those fights. Now, Boots has a fight coming up on July the 8th, ROIMAN VILLA, I believe. Big fight. I've never watched Villa live, but I've seen some of his footage. And, it's going to be a good fight. I think Boots should come out on top of that. I think Boots is the next up. So his skill set should outlast that of Villa, but I could be wrong.
Trust is built, my nigga. It ain't just earned. I trust my I didn't even get it out my mouth. My bad.
Now, where would that fight be the best? Because we all know that Boots is a big welterweight, actually as big as a guy like Errol Spence Jr. So it's not a problem for him to move up in weight, but the thing about it is Boots is new to the scene, and Boots doesn't have the best 147 resume, so a lot of people, they pick at Boots because of his resume. But in all actuality, he has been calling the top guys out for at least 3 to 4 years. So it's not that he doesn't want to fight those guys. It's almost like those guys are backdooring him, or they're ducking him because they don't want to risk, perhaps losing to the next guy up, when they could fight each other. And, winner takes all, and winner gets to move up in weight, which I think the loser of this fight, there's a potential. If it's Terence Crawford, he might retire because he is up there in age, depending on the type of beating he takes if he loses. But I think both of these guys will most likely stick around for 1 to 2 more fights after even that fight. Now, here's the crazy thing about this whole scenario. So you got all that, and then you have the fact that there's a rematch clause in there. So, let's say Errol Spence wins and knocks Terence Crawford out. Does Terence Crawford actually activate his rematch clause? Now, I read something else as well, that the rematch clause will only be activated if the fight is a success. So, not only does the fight have to sell well for the rematch clause to be activated, one of these guys will have to petition for it as well, you know, whoever the loser is, to have the rematch clause granted. So, you know, you got Errol Spence talking about moving to 160. You got Terence talking about going to 154. You got Boots at 147 sitting around waiting for both of these guys to give them an opportunity. You know, there's two scenarios that could play out here. Maybe three, but definitely two. Number one is Errol Spence beats Terence Crawford, moves to 160, fights Canelo. Boots doesn't get to fight him for, you know, the IBF title, which is supposed to be the next fight up. Should Boots just stick around 147 because he's already the next up for the IBF title? If Spence moves to 160 and drops the titles, either Boots will automatically become a champion and will pick up the IBF title, or he'll have to fight somebody for the IBF title. So it could actually benefit Boots just to stick around 147. He'll most likely become a champion before his next fight. Or, you know, the second scenario that could play out is, let's say Errol Spence wins, you know, beats Terence Crawford, and actually gives Boots a shot. You know, sticks around 147 and gives Boots a shot. You know, I think for Boots, that would be the best case scenario. You know, other than that, you know, it would depend on who wins. If Terence Crawford wins, you know, there's a chance he might move up to 154, fight Charlo. He could hold on to the belts. He doesn't have to immediately drop the titles. Try to become undisputed at two different weights. You know, could be possible. But let's say Terence Crawford wins, you know, moves up, fights Charlo, drops the titles. Boots still in the same scenario. He's still automatically the next up for the IBF title. So once again, it benefits him to stick around. Or Terence Crawford could give Boots a shot at the 147 title, because technically Boots is next up and the IBF title needs to be defended. So that if Terence Crawford won, that IBF mandatory would be actually the first fight he would have to take. So Boots is the next up at 147 no matter what. And then you got Virgil Ortiz right behind him. So I think that there's a reasoning for both of these guys wanting to move up in weight. They don't want to see either one of those guys. So I think the scenario that's most likely to play out is the winner is going to move up in weight and most likely not fight either of those guys, drop the titles. And then those two guys, Virgil and Boots, will most likely end up having to fight it out for those titles. You know, whether it's the IBF, the WBA, the WBC, you know, it doesn't really matter, but I'm pretty sure those two guys will end up fighting for one of those titles, or maybe all of those titles at some point in the near future. Most definitely Boots will be the IBF champion if he just waits it out. So y'all let me know what y'all think about all that down in the comment section below. That like button for me. Share. Subscribe. Holler at me on all social media platforms, that Facebook, that Instagram, that YouTube, that Twitter. But you are more than likely to get a response on the tube, so holler at me over there. If you'd like to collabo, feel free to hit my Gmail. It is aflockofcards@gmail.com. If you have a product that you would like to feature on the channel, no problem. Holler at me at the same email, and we can make it happen. And we are live.
Work strapped up, dog, it ain't nothing. Keep a gang of hoes lined up, ready to bring something. I'm a player in my own right. Blow a eye, tote that. Cop an elbow just to roll it up and smoke that. Cause you ain't heard about me. What? Yeah, it's Katie in the club 50D with an entourage of killers. Yeah, we tote tax and we stretching niggas out. They call us Bowflex. Got them hiding and ducking, chain tucking. I'm a wild motherfucker. Grip the grain, then I peel out, motherfucker. Got the city on lock. I'm a king, and breaking all kind of laws. Cause the police on our team. I got a shop I built up that make money every day. I'm a rap star, a ball like I'm in the NBA. With a cold ass flow and a suave ass swag. With a cocky attitude and keep a broad ass bag. Come on.
I got some niggas on my team, man, my niggas is me. I got some bitches on my team, man, my bitches is cool. I got some niggas on the block, they ain't scared of fly. I got some niggas on the hood, let me know what's good.
Big real big blocks. big Chevy, big blade, big beef, big E, big money, big play, big diamonds, big wheels, big brains, big shine, big chains, big gold, big flows, big time.
Hey yo, I take a hit of the weed and contemplate how I'm about to make the whole city congregate. Where I'm from, constant hate is commonplace. See the look upon my face, my ganja's great. KD told me that he was down south and he heard about keys through word of mouth. Now that's the type of shit to let you know I'm on the grind. A lot of niggas like I bet he blow, it's about time. Be patient, I took a vacation and came back with something for the ones that was hating. You still see me blowed at the radio station, but if they don't play it, dog, ain't no complaining shit. I'm still knocking them, ain't no way you're stopping them. Chicks like cars, you with keys, you can hop in them. And you a true bitch, I stay off the brandy like you rich, trying to get a few chicks. I got some niggas on my team, and my niggas is me. I got some bitches on my team, and my bitches is me. I got